You're watching the Three and You Giant Fans podcast brought to you by Scott, Giant, Mike and Cardone. We're sponsored by Manscaped.com. Use code AGREEMAN to get a 20% discount and free shipping. And download our audio podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
We are live.
All right, and the Giants advance. So, we hear the play there with Flott breaking up the third down pass, which was just as big, I think, as the fourth down catch and stop short of the sticks. And then the Giants are moving on, and we're playing the Eagles, which we'll get into. So we are the Three Angry Giant Fans. Your host, Scott, Giant, Mike, and Cardone. And boys, playoff victory for the first time in I don't know how many years.
Since we walked off the field after beating the Patriots the second time, right? Was that the last one?
It was.
First playoff win since Lucas Oil Stadium, 2012 season, or 2011 season. So amazing feeling, guys. This is nuts. This is crazy, man. We would have thought this when the season started, right? We'll get into all of this tonight, but pretty amazing, man. This is just feels great.
So we will talk about a lot of things, but think about the playoffs right here. So Giants have a lot of statistical things going on right now when they make the playoffs. First off, we know that they're undefeated if they make it to an NFC championship game. But prior to that, the Giants have been one or done, or they've gone to the Super Bowl in like their last 8 playoff appearances. I think the last time actually was the Viking game in 94, or I think it was 94. They beat the Vikings and they got steamrolled by the Niners the week after.
Mm-hmm.
And the Giants are also 6-0 versus the number 1 seed since 1990.
Wow.
Holy
That's
cow.
pretty awesome. That's amazing.
That is. I mean, you had to know it was a good number of them because, you could just click them off in your head there. But, man, 6-0, that's amazing.
That's a great stat. This is great because I was doing some playoff history, and I kind of always, because this is our lifetime, guys, right? Our first playoff experience was 1981.
Yep.
Like that's the first I remember, and we're all the same age. So that was what I consider the modern day era of like Giants playoff football. Right. And I went back and I had to look at all the wins and losses and the history of the league and everything. And a pretty impressive stat. I knew it was going to be pretty favorable. Do you guys realize the Giants, they're since 81 in the playoffs, they're 21-12 and that's their playoff record.
Yeah.
And the 21 wins are tied for 5th in the league overall since 81. So that's what 5 Super Bowl appearances and 4 championships will do to your playoff win total record in that span. So, of course, the teams ahead of them are New England, the Niners, Steelers, I think, and then Green Bay by 1. And then the Giants and the Broncos are right there with 21. So pretty amazing success, and that comes with all of these years of missing the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, as Scott pointed out, lately these Giants are either immediately out or they make a deep run. And we'll talk. I would like to talk later about what a deep run means, but certainly a deep run means advancing past the championship game. So yeah, that's been their MO. It's they only win games when they're serious. And we'll see.
There's one other stat that's driving this too, and that's we know the 2 Super Bowl runs we had against the Patriots. We were on the road that entire time. So I think if you go back, and I don't know if the time frame went to 2000 or if it went before 2000, but for teams that have played a minimum of 3 games in the playoffs, the Giants are the only team I think above 500 on the road, and I think the Giants are 6-2 on the road in playoff games.
Yeah,
pretty damn
amazing.
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy this team has that, we aren't regular visitors to this playoff arena, but when we get here, we usually bang around a little bit.
So before we get started, let me give a shout out to one of our listeners' towns, and it's hello, Millerton, New York. It's one of the 10 coolest small towns in America, population 958, Eastern New York on the border of Connecticut, and it rebuilt itself after a milk processing plant shut down and a lot of farms in the area started shutting down. And it's also the home of the flowing lock half of Hall & Oates, Daryl Hall.
Is that right?
It is.
Wow.
958 people, and one of them is Hall?
She's gone. Oh, wow.
Giant fans in this town? There's got to be Giant fans there, right?
Wait a minute. who votes on the 10 coolest towns in the United States?
I don't know. It was like
Is-
by Travel Magazine or one of those
is-
places.
Is Fonzie involved in that at all in the voting?
So
What's the criteria? I'm down. I want to be what the criteria of this is.
I don't know. It definitely it's not a hamlet though. It's a town apparently.
Yeah, it's a town. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, They
I
got a
love the
farm.
history lessons and geography lessons on the Three Angry Giant fans. It's great.
I don't know. Looks just like any small town I've ever seen. I don't know. I don't see anything too cool happening there. But welcome aboard Millertown.
That's where Kramer put a screen door on the apartment there. Anytown, USA, Jerry.
Yep. Anytown,
The cool
USA.
breezes of Anytown, USA.
So the three of us were together at Cardone's place. He was happy to host us for the playoff game. We thought we might be a little bit too rambunctious to be in public, and I'm glad we weren't in public because Cardone, guys, he was a mess. He was. We had to talk him off a ledge the entire second half. He was every other play. He's like, "What the hell is Wink doing? What's Wink doing? They're dinking and dunking." But then when you looked at what Wink was doing, he took Jefferson and Cook out of that game in the second half. So I think Jefferson had one catch. I think Cook overall in the game, 60 yards total, hardly anything in the second half. I think once Cardone saw that we won, he came around and saw the goodness of Wink.
It's sort of like the old, Belichick Super Bowl game plan against Buffalo in Super Bowl 25, where, you got to trust the guy, right? So, yeah, you guys were bringing me off the ledge a little bit because I was expecting just blitzing ferociously, all day on Kirk Cousins. He didn't do that, especially the way the first drive started, right? I mean, they shoved it down our throat to start the game. So I was thinking, I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours and watch Justin Jefferson, catch 12 balls and do what he did to us the last time. And there was obviously a defensive game plan, and we'll get into both sides of the ball, guys, as we break down the Viking win, which was just amazing. I mean, before we came on, we were talking about how the Giants, they nearly pitched a perfect game in terms of, when you compare the whole season, and just the game planning was just phenomenal. I mean, just what a great job by this coaching staff and by the execution of the players. I mean, there's a couple plays we'll point out, but overall, what a freaking game plan. Just awesome.
Yeah. What a time to have that clean game we've been wanting, right?
Yeah.
What a time to pull that thing out. And I think the only person, Cardone, in the world, or the only people I should say in the world, less surprised at Wink's kind of backing off the blitz this week was the Viking staff, because they weren't sure what the hell we were doing on defense. Yep. And they were, we had them, they scored points. Like they're a talented offense. You can't shut them out or anything, but they looked confused. They were on their heels by what Wink was bringing to the table, and it just seemed like, I don't know if we were guessing right, but when they set up to block the blitz, we dropped people back in coverage. When they left no back to protect Cousins, we were blitzing. So it's really good to always be one step ahead like that, and that's it was a beautiful thing. It was awesome to see.
We used to punch at different analogies trying to talk Cardone off. We're like, he's doing the rope-a-dope. There were a lot of boxing analogies. We were talking about that. We were talking about how Mickey had Rocky change his stance for a little bit, take a little bit of a beating and come back. And it really didn't happen till the very end. Wink, the last two series of the game, did go back to man coverage and brought a little bit more pressure. But up until that time, he was playing zone and rushing four. And I'll tell you what, guys, Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence were getting home. They were getting pressure. We'll talk about the ridiculous roughing the passer call that could have been impactful had the Vikings come down and scored. But, a lot of stuff going on in that game from a strategy standpoint. Not only that, but the runs that Barkley had with power, that Jones had, the short yard conversions, the balls Dable had to go for it on fourth down a few times. Just like you said, we pitched a great game.
Yeah, it really did. Coaching was phenomenal. Everyone who needed to step up stepped up. That's what you have to do to win these road playoff games. And I'm not trying to sound too arrogant here before, but we as Giant fans, we have seen this before. how to win a road playoff game. If there's any
Mhm.
team that knows how to do it, and I realized that the last time we won a road playoff game, I don't think there's one person on this roster or coaching staff that was here. So I don't know what it is, but we put on those white jerseys, man, and we we figure this
Yeah.
thing out. I'm telling you.
It's a strange thing. This team on the road, they've been consistently good. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't matter. Different roster, different coaching. Different coaches. For some reason, the Giants. I'm more confident. Something about the white unis. I'm more confident with this team on the road. We've talked about this during the regular season, and this game goes offensively. Guys couldn't have dreamed up a better just a script, right? Offensively, I mean,
Yeah.
the only we talked about the clean game, and really the only two plays that stood out in my mind were probably when we had the illegal shift, what would have been a 21-7 lead, in the second quarter there, which cost us a few points, and we went up by 10 at that point, and then of course the Darius Slayton drop on what may have sealed the game, on our last drive there. So other than that, it was just an amazing effort offensively. The line, just all around, just an amazing, execution, the play calling. Like you hit the nail on the head, Scott. Both of you guys. When Dable had to, go for it on fourth down, we Jones got the play done, got it done. And we'll talk about Jones and his legs. First of all, his overall performance, Daniel Jones. I don't know where you guys want to start with him, but we've been talking about it all year. I mean, just guys ready to play the best football in his life, and we saw it in at least one playoff game. And we'll talk about what we think he can do this weekend against the Eagles.
We've seen a lot of epic performances by Giant quarterbacks in the playoffs, and I don't feel like this is hyperbole. So one person said this was hyperbole this week. I don't think it's hyperbole to say Daniel Jones had a playoff appearance that it could be right up there with any of the best in Giants history. I mean, the way he went for 301 yards, he had what, 78 yards rushing, counted for 2 touchdowns. It just fourth down conversions. What he did, no turnovers, 2 touchdowns. When you see those numbers and having that other touchdown called back, we've seen Eli played well in games where he's hung tough even when he didn't have stats. We saw Phil Simms in the Super Bowl, obviously, with a near perfect game. This has to go up there as one of those, although it's the first game we played, it's near flawless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he has so many more of these that we eventually forget about this one. But right now, I mean, this is that is a quarterback at the top of his game right there. And guys, the thing I thought of most when I was watching this game, particularly in the third quarter, and as it looked, we said perfect game and a clean game. It was clean. And Scott pointed out there some of the things that were like, oh no, we've played so well to this point, we're going to lose it. And Jones just kept getting back up off the mat and making the next play. We dusted off those things and made the next play. And that was, I just can't help but think, look at what Daniel Jones is doing this with. What is he going to do when he doesn't have to take off and run 30% of the time? What is he going to have to do when he gets receivers breaking wide open? What is he going to do when the defense can't expect him to run because we don't have to have him run so much? So what he does is it's going to shock everybody. And gaping holes for Barkley, God help us if we can get those things, put an offensive line together. Holy crap. How many quarterbacks have gone through what he went through?
Yeah. Now, you guys might have the stats in front of you. I think Jones ran 17 times.
I've got him.
I don't know if you realize this. Barkley only ran 9 times. He had quite a few catches, but he only ran the ball 9 times.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to comment, Scott. What I loved about this, the game plan offensively was they obviously saw a lot on film the last time, we played this Minnesota team. Was Christmas Eve, of course. And, the Giants put up a lot of yards in that game. Offensively, the team stats, it was the 2 biggest, I think, maybe yardage games I think we had, all season. So I will say, people could, you could, whatever narrative you want to spin. I mean, this Minnesota defense this stinks. This unit stinks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for a team, we knew they were not great. And that's why the 3 of us were, hoping for the Minnesota in the first round, rather than San Francisco going into that last weekend of the regular season, and the Minnesota, if they fell, obviously the seeds aligned, so we knew we had a chance. But what I loved was the designed runs for Jones in this game. I mean, he took off when he had to a couple times, and when he did, he was effective, right? He's stiff arming, Patrick Peterson, and when he's getting out in the open field and stuff, the guy's playing with he's got a lot of mojo going right now, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. I know, it's one game, it's one playoff game, but for his first career playoff, game on the road, and to get a win the way he did. What I heard this week from the media was quite amazing. I mean, it was complete polar opposite of what we've been hearing about this guy. So I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I feel like some of these guys you're a little late to the party this year, And guys, I remember the three of us saying exactly, don't remember what week it was or what have you, but we kept saying, if you guys remember, like, we don't even know if this guy's good. We thought he was, but we really don't know. So we'll get into even more of that with Jones, as we talk about the upcoming game, and then of course what this means for Jones's signing with the Giants, going forward.
Yeah. Well, we're staying on the offense. Hodgins had another great game, over 100 yards. Bellinger got a touchdown, although I think he only had 3 catches. But here's one thing that stood out to me. Well, one other thing, and we'll touch upon this, but the answer of the score after we went down by 7 immediately, and then not giving up the score that after the score like we usually do.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up taking the 17-7 lead, like Chris said earlier. But there was one other thing that stood out to me in this game that's different from past Giant teams, and that's when you do throw short of the sticks, your guy is in the play design that allows him to then go and get that first down, something that's killed us for years. We've watched Brian Mitchell out of the backfield, or guys catch passes, and there's no one within 15 yards of these guys, and they're running free on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10. We did that pretty regularly. Slayton would have had, a memorable one had he caught that ball. But then, to have the game come down to a play where TJ Hawkinson gets the ball 4 yards short of the sticks and we make that tackle on 4th down, just highlights how that was the Giants of Jason Garrett running 4 curls in a toss. When we threw short of the sticks in years past, it was because that was it. That was all we had, and we weren't getting a first down.
Yeah, that's a great analysis there, Scott. And I'll tell you, I thought of this with Kirk Cousins on that last play of the game. And I'm not one of these big Kirk Cousins haters. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's in a wonderful situation, and he's good enough. He puts up good numbers. He's just apparently not a winner. You know what I'm saying? But when I saw him throw that ball, my first thought was, this is like young Daniel Jones, and it's like what our quarterbacks after Jones got hurt last year were doing. If that's the 3rd quarter, and Minnesota's down by 7 and they're on a drive, that's the right throw. That's all the Giants were given. And it's like a robot. You're like a quarterback robot, covered, check down. That's what I'm supposed to do. 4th and 8 in the 4th quarter, where that's the last play of the game, you can't do it. You got to throw into double coverage. You got to do something else or tuck it and run. But you can't throw that ball in that situation. And it's just like, he's just quarterback robot. He's been so savant into the playbook for the last week that, okay, but robotic, that's my right throw. It's the right throw for 90% of a football game. It's not the right throw in that situation.
Yeah.
I think really that's the difference between a Kirk Cousins and because I'm so familiar, I'll say Eli Manning, but there's 100 other quarterbacks you could use an example there. That's where you get they call you a gunslinger. Maybe you have 4 or 5 too many interceptions in a year. That's because you get into those situations and no, I can't make that throw right now. Even though that's a completion, I got to take a chance on this play.
Great breakdown by both you guys right there, because we talk about it all the time. Our receivers are constantly facing the wrong direction, right? Their back is to the defense, facing the quarterback, with a 6-yard curl on 3rd and 8, and they got guys, defenders draped all over them. The yak or the rack yards, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely non-existent. This particular game was amazing to see the guys, Jones hitting guys on the run, crossing patterns, getting Barkley out into the open space, out into the flat. And he was running with power between the tackles and then getting outside. A couple things I want to highlight, guys. Just the first half alone, but without even thinking about the second half here. Yeah, after Minnesota goes on their 12-play, 75-yard drive to open the game, which I was definitely feeling a little salty about right away. Just thinking that, Well, Jack, that's no way to start. Obviously a playoff game, and then. And I'm not a big boxing guy, but like the boxing analogy would be like we immediately hit him like with a couple jabs. We come right back down with our 75-yard drive and shove it right down their throat for with the Barkley score, and then we force a 3-and-out, and then we quickly hit him with another couple jabs, a 4-play drive for 81 yards, which by the way that was the laser to Isaiah Hodgins there to go up 14-7. We were fortunate guys on that play. Like we talk about getting screwed by the officials. That was one where Andrew Thomas
moved for, yeah.
Oh, I've watched that play a number of times now. He's moving like a full second before the snap. And we've talked about that on our show here, how for some reason in the league, that particular play is not being called. And I don't know who the defensive end was for the Vikings. He's pointing at Thomas, looking around. He basically quit and stopped on that play, waiting for the flag. So fortunate there. And then we force another punt at that point. And then ironically, this was my favorite drive of the game, guys, and it only resulted in 3 points. The Giants went on a 20-play, 85-yard drive that almost consumed 11 minutes. That's unheard of.
Yeah, it's playoff football.
And we still scored 31 points in a game where we had a drive that took 11 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we only had 8 possessions in the entire game.
Well, 9. Well, really, it's almost like 7, Scott. You know why? Because we got the ball. So those were our first. So we scored 17 points on our first 3 possessions. Then we had they scored at the end, inside of 2 minutes, of course. And then, so basically we kind of downed it for the end of the half. And then we went touchdown, punt, touchdown, punt, and then the end of the game. So we had 9 possessions officially. 2 of them were basically taking knees.
Yeah.
So it's like we had 7 possessions and the Giants scored on 5 of them. We only punted twice. Just amazing.
I don't know what the difference was this week. If it was just that Minnesota's bad, which could very well be the case. We could be back to the curls next week. But Scott highlighted it. Chris, you brought it up again, is crossing routes and players catching the ball while running. And, it was amazing. I have the highlights rolling here as I'm doing the podcast. And like, as you guys were talking about it, I was watching it happen on the screen at the same time. And it's like, that hasn't been Giants football for a decade. Those kind of catch and run. So like I said, hopefully something has changed and it's not just that Minnesota stinks, but I'll tell you guys, I said, there's 2 things that happened in this game that never happened for the Giants. And you guys just said one of them. We got away with a false start. And then we had the defender fall down on Slayton, which turned into a big play. I mean, we're always talking about how we never get the blown coverage. We never get the defender falling down. Well, there you go. We had that happen. So yeah, just a fun game to watch. It wasn't a blowout. I think at one point we got up 10, right? Was the
17-7.
But Minnesota came back and tied it. But they never flinched. Never flinched.
Yeah.
No, I like the fact that we came back after that early onslaught. I mean, Mike was always confident about that. As you're watching a playoff game and the nerves are going so high, you see them come out like gangbusters, and you were immediately worried. And Mike calmed us down. And I will say, guys, I was a wreck before the game. I'm normally not like this. We're watching that Miami-Buffalo game beforehand, and I just have a pit in my stomach, and I can't get comfortable. And even when game time came on, we missed like the first play because, we weren't sure how the Miami game took, 8 hours to complete?
Yeah.
So
felt like it.
You switch over and we already missed the first 10-yard completion by the Vikings, and you're already feeling like, all right, we're behind the 8 ball here.
Yeah.
Yeah, unheard of us to miss a play, right? Because we're dicking around with a playoff game, and we're trying to figure out, well, they won't start the other game. It's the playoffs, right? They never want to overlap the games.
Yeah.
So we were doing our best to kind of flip between the games, and we come back. We by the time we got back over, it was we had missed the kickoff in one play. Unacceptable for us. Unacceptable.
we talked
that
about
is just.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No,
one
go ahead,
point
Mike.
there, Scott. There's 2 things that I want to get in. Are we moving off this game after this?
No, I was going to talk about the defense, but go ahead.
Okay, all right, cool, yeah. Now I forgot I was going to say all that talking, but no, I know what it was. So yeah, I have kind of noticed and learned over the years not to get too freaked out about that first possession by the other team, because there's been so many games where it's been 7-0 on the first drive and the final score is 20-17, or 20-10, or something like that. So yeah, I don't play, man. Playoff, I was nervous as hell, but I was, I thought I was going to be the calmer down. I'm going to be all right, we're fine. We're fine.
You're right,
Cardone and I are
Mike.
going nuts. Mike's like,
I'm going nuts already.
guys, scripted plays. Well, it's like the Bill Walsh era.
Yeah.
Yeah. For our listeners, actually, it was funny. Mike, as soon as they scored, Mike's like, "We're fine. We're fine." I'm like, what are you drinking over there? What are you talking about?
Get out of here.
Yeah. But it was great the way you said it, Mike. Like, we're fine. We're fine.
So for those that can't understand what Cardone's layout is in his apartment, you could sort of see where he is now if you're watching us on YouTube. If you go to the right of him, he was hiding in the kitchen for most of the game. The guy was just like
behind that partial wall you
Yeah.
can see there. Yeah.
Right. This way. In the galley there. I have to, I can't, there's some points. It's like watching a horror movie where you're looking through your fingers, you know what I mean? Like you're just so desperate, like praying that just, everything goes your way, that it's just difficult to even stand in front of the TV sometimes. I just got a bad habit of doing that. We were talking about that last week about superstitions, right? I have like some of those where like I can't even watch shit. Sometimes it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll talk about the highs and lows of what we went through in a little bit. But on the defensive side, huge production, like I said before, from Dex and Leo. But guys, McKinney and Love being back there, along with Jackson being back, was key in this game. And I think it's going to be key against Philadelphia too, because if you remember last game we played Philadelphia, McKinney wasn't back yet, and Love uncharacteristically whiffed on that play that Devontae Smith caught where he inexplicably went for the ball on 4th and 9. I don't think we see a mistake like that again. And we're going to talk about the Eagles game in a second, but just that five-person team right there, McKinney, Love, Jackson, Dex, and Leo, just brought it all game. And I'll tell you what, Tibbs was getting held in the middle again on the Minnesota touchdown that went to the wide open, I think it's KT Osborne or whoever it was.
Yes.
Tibbs was just being mauled on that one. Tackled.
Yeah.
He was tackled, Scott. I think we replayed that one a couple times, and that was another one where my blood pressure went, just absolutely off the chart, because how you missed that one. It's right at the point of attack. It's right in the middle of the pocket. The referee's standing right behind the play. How you don't call that one? And they love the holdings. Well, they drew the offensive holdings on first down, because it wasn't first down. That's why.
You guys might forget this too. When we were down 7-0, our first offensive play was a 12-yard gain by Barkley.
Oh yeah.
Offensive holding. So we overcame a 1st and 20 to make that drive and still have the tying score. And one thing I didn't notice, it was on the clip that we played on the preview here, that 3rd down play before Hawkinson's catch and tackle. Cordell Flott had a pass breakup on a ball, and that was one of Flott's 3 snaps, I think, for the game. So just for him to come in, be ready, contribute, that goes again to the preparation Dable and the staff have had all year long. Wink and those guys, just getting these guys ready to be able to go.
Yeah, there's
Breida had a good big play too.
Yeah.
There's so much about this defense that just it is so refreshing over past years, and we've seen a lot of it, in the regular season. But we talked about this before the game started. We had our full complement out there on defense. Everyone we wanted to play was playing. So I think that's probably got to be the first time we've had that all year, because we started the year with Ojulari and Thibodeau out. So, so just to see the discipline. Just to know, Patrick Graham's name got mentioned a couple times. Just to know that we weren't doing that garbage. How many games have the Giants lost? And this is going back before this era, even before Judge. How many games have the Giants lost where on a big play like the one Cousins made at the end, they pump that play to the running back, and 4 Giants converge on that guy when you don't have to let him throw that ball. Who cares? Yeah. This team. That they had man-to-man coverage on Hawkinson. This team, as soon as that ball went there, everyone stayed disciplined. McKinney goes up and makes the play. I mean, just a professional football team. 2 years ago, I think the joke was, we just want to cheer for a professional football team. And
a team that looks like they belong in the league.
Yeah,
that's all.
win, lose, or draw this week, we're there. We've achieved that low bar.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Defensively, it's weird. Like if you look, so if you didn't see the game and you look at the box score and the statistics, Cousins had a very good game statistically.
Yep.
31 for 39. Didn't have a turnover. That we didn't turn them over. We didn't officially sack Cousins. Now we got pressures on him and we made him uncomfortable at times.
That's right. We never had a sack.
We did not officially have a sack. I mean, so. And Hawkinson had 10 catches, 129. He burned us for those kinds of numbers the first time we saw Minnesota.
Yeah.
But what seemed solid defensively in this game, and this is kind of a weird. Maybe I just was just looking at the replay of the game. The Giants, like they were positioned well after a ball was caught. It seemed.
Oh, he froze up again.
He'll be back.
There he is.
What's that? Oh no, I froze up.
Just for a second. You're good.
Am I back?
We're fine. Back. We're fine.
We're fine. We're fine. You guys look handsome on my screen, so I don't know what the hell happened. So anyway, no, it just seemed like the guys were not out of position, throughout the entire game. I just felt like, not to say that we knew what they were going to do, and we didn't have them snuffed out or anything like that, but I just felt like the tackling was good, and they had a couple decent, mid-range plays, for 20 plus yards, those kinds of things. But we didn't get burned deep. We took Jefferson. The biggest thing was taking Jefferson out of the game in the second half. How many teams have done that this year?
One catch in the second half.
One catch, whatever, how many yards he had. He had 47 for the game.
I think it was one catch for 6 yards in the second half, and I think he only had 2 targets, if that.
Yeah, that's insane, guys, when you think about it. I mean, if you look at his game log, which I haven't, what other team did that to Jefferson this year? Probably none. Yeah. So
they said the final play call was actually one of their bread and butter plays to Jefferson. The Giants had him high load, and that's why Cousin checked it down.
And McKinney made a great. By the way, McKinney, thank God he makes that tackle, because I didn't see another white jersey on that play for about 10, 15 yards. Right?
Yeah.
He hung on for dear life, and he made the play. He made the play of the season to this point right now.
That is one of those things, Mike. When you do the check down, I mean, there's a guy open, and if he breaks that tackle, he has the first down. And so in that regard, I think Cousins might have been right in his decision making, just because he had a guy coming in on him. I think Dexter was coming in again with pressure up the middle, and so he either had to make a decision, throw it to Jefferson or throw it to Hawkinson, and he took the lesser two evils.
Yeah.
Although I agree with you, throw it up there at that point.
One other option or outlet. I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, just I don't know if you guys remember, like Dalvin Cook slipped out. Now it's hard to maybe to look and read all the way, go through your progressions, but Cook actually did slip out to on the left side, the left flat over there. And we had I can't remember who the defender was, but Cook had a lot of space. So if obviously Cousins doesn't have a lot of time. There was we got pressure on him enough to kind of clog the passing lanes, and Cousins couldn't quite see the field cleanly. But if Cousins, and he doesn't, maybe he doesn't have this ability, like if he's able to spin out of there, maybe scramble and buy some extra time, Dalvin Cook was pretty open on the flat on the left side there.
Yeah. So the key players in that final play that we've talked about are, of course, Cousins and Hawkinson and McKinney. But that's Dexter Lawrence's play. He made that play. Because he immediately made Cousins make a decision within 1 second, Daniel Jones style, of where he has to go with that ball. And you don't have time to say, whose brain can process fast enough to say, I can't throw this check down. It's 4th and 8, and there's a guy out there with him. It just doesn't work like that. But kudos to McKinney as well, as the play's coming up here now, for not just flying in there reckless abandon and trying to knock the ball out or something. He squared up. He almost let the catch happen.
Yeah.
And then just, squared up. And how many times have we seen a defender go in there and try to knock the guy out or try to intercept the ball?
Or just shoulder the guy, Mike, where he's not even, he doesn't wrap up. He just shoulders him. And or the guy makes one simple cut. Yep.
To have that discipline to say, he can catch this ball. He's off balance. I could drag him out of bounds. I don't think I'm giving him too much credit to say that he had an opportunity to try to make, the highlight reel play there and decided not to.
Yeah. So we'll move off this game in a second. One last thing I did want to touch upon and the NFL has to come up with an answer for this. I don't know if it's replay. I don't know if it's the quick review that we saw several times in this game, which you don't see on a normal Sunday. But
Yeah.
that roughing the passer call against Dexter Lawrence could have been absolutely crippling if they went ahead and won that game, because not only did that stop what it was a third down at the time, but it gave them a first down 15 yards ahead of where they should have been. It should have been a sack. It was a sack.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just that
No.
unacceptable at that stage of the game. And I don't care how you slice it. I watched a lot of the reaction in the last couple of days to that particular play, and nobody's debating that was a brutal call. It just brutal.
Guys, when I re-listened to the game, Greg Olsen was whining about calls the entire second half, and to the point where Mike Pereira at one point got a little agitated with him and was like, "Hey, whoa," but he was looking for calls on the Giants for some reason. It sounded very, very slanted, at least from my point of view. Of course, I'm biased too, but I a couple years ago, people were saying Greg Olsen's probably an up and coming announcer. He's one to watch, and I was impressed with him at first, and just this season alone, I've changed. I've done like a complete 160 or 180 on him. He seems to have like gotten to that announcer sort of rut where you're just talking about platitudes. You're not really getting in depth. You're just saying the things that you came into the game with, the script.
God, it's got to be so tempting for these guys to know that you get paid a lot of money to do that job, and you can be excellent. You can be John Madden. You can be Kevin Harlan, but it's kind of like you don't have to be. Like, you just
Right.
you don't have you tell me Jonathan Vilma is doing like film study and stuff before the games. I mean it's awful. He says things that are just not true. And don't mean to pick on poor Jonathan there. There's many of them now, but it's hard if you don't have that work ethic, if you don't have that desire to be one of the best. That is such a job that is so easy to mail in. My God.
Oh yeah.
I can't, the people that are doing it and their lack of knowledge of specific player skills and the rules of the game. I mean, sometimes I think, we always pick on putting the rules of overtime up there, or here's what happens when you have a safety. I think that's for the announcers sometimes. I think they need to be reminded. But yeah, I haven't listened to Olsen a lot this year. Obviously we didn't hear much of him during that game, but that's a shame, because he was one coming out, as his reputation as a player was amazing work ethic, a gym rat type of guy. And so, maybe he's done with the hard work. He's got a mail it in job now. And that's unfortunate, because I thought he was good at first.
So guys, we got Philly coming up. Big. I mean, this is a huge game for a number of reasons. They're a divisional foe. We just have been on a schneid against Philly. We haven't won in Philly in a long time. And I didn't realize Daniel Jones the last time he played in Philly, there were no fans in the stadium. It was COVID, because he didn't play against them last year there. He was injured. And then this year, they benched him for Davis Webb in the last game of the season. But before we even get to that game, let's think about this. The division that has been mocked mercilessly in the past couple of years, they are the only division, the NFC least, that has 3 of the final 4 teams left in the NFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're the only team that sent 3 to the playoffs, right?
Well, yeah, and I think
Or
that
the
might
only
be
division.
the only time we've ever done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have this stat right. I hope I don't mess this up, but I think I saw 3 teams from the same division that are playing in this weekend's games in the divisional round. The first time since '97, I think is what I heard. And I think, do I have that right, Scott? I don't know, but I think
you might. I thought
Yeah.
this was the first time ever that 3 have been in part of the final 4
in the conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I saw it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure if I have that statistic right. I didn't write it down. I saw something of that sort that they were talking about today. So in any event, it's the 3 of us were kind of highlighting it the last couple days that this team or this division, mock all you want, but and we knew it was a bad it was a bad division a couple of years ago, but man, I mean it's been one of the most formidable divisions since they since we've done this realignment, however
Yeah.
freaking many decades ago, NFC
Yeah.
East has been a powerhouse for many years.
So-
We have one fucking bad, down year. They get mocked, and then,
Yeah.
I didn't hear them mocking in the NFC South this year that much. Not as much as the
What,
East.
Tampa Bay was favored against Dallas.
That was
Yeah.
a joke. Tampa was a joke Monday night.
Yeah, we used to call it back in the day, and this was before we've added Super Bowls onto it in that division. It was the cradle of champions, the NFC East. I mean, that
Yeah.
was, so you have a down year. Maybe that's what it is. People say, "Oh, we never get to pick on the NFC East. Let's go at them." But early in this year, some people were saying, "Well, record-wise, this is the best division ever."
Yeah.
And people were quick to point out, "Well, they haven't played each other yet." So now we've gone through that gauntlet. We've all played each other, and here we are, 3 of the final 4 teams in the NFC playoffs. So at this point, I think it's safe to say, empirically and non-empirically, whatever, this is the best division ever.
Well, and guys, I think record-wise, we did. The 4 teams combined ended up as the best division ever.
Yeah.
And I think it was both in total wins. Of course, we all have an extra game,
Yeah.
and it was in winning percentage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because even Washington ended up 500. I think they won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They beat Dallas in the
I
last
don't think
regular
there's
season
been a time
game.
a division has
Yeah.
not had a all teams above 500.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So in this game, a lot of this to me, guys, and I'll let you say your takes in a second. I think a lot of this is how far Hurts has come along in his injury status. We need to keep him in check running the ball. Like I mentioned before, McKinney being back is a huge boost versus the last time we played to them. And you know what I can't get over, and I was talking about the statistics earlier when we first opened up, but there's a flip side here of, if you remember 2008, the Giants were juggernauts until Plaxico shot himself in the leg.
Mhm.
And the Eagles this year were juggernauts for the first 10, 11 games of the season. And then, the last few weeks, they just haven't been world beaters. Jalen Hurts been hurt. Minshew comes in. They lose a few games. Do we now go to their place like they came to our place? And if you remember, they beat Minnesota week 1. And then they came to our house and thrashed us.
Yeah.
We beat Minnesota week 1 in the playoffs. Do we go there and now turn the tables? That's what's in my mind, even though when we give our predictions here, I may not be as rosy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this is there's a lot of matchup problems, I think, outside of just Jalen Hurts, but that's been the talk, and that's really the as far as the Eagles concerned. I mean, the Giants, we have our own concerns, right? As far as how we're going to attack this team, but and we're not going to know if Jalen Hurts is 100%, right? They're not going to disclose that. He's not going to, other than the absolute most inner circle of the Eagles. But he played well enough, albeit against our backups and whatnot. 2 weeks ago, they've had the bye, of course. We know that. The first time we played the Eagles, that's when the Giants started their tailspin, really, right? They were, it was post bye week. We escaped a kind of an ugly win against Houston. That's when we had that run where we lost to Detroit. Then we lost at the Cowboys. We had the ridiculous tie against the Washington, and then Philly came in and just beat the snot out of us. And so the Giants at that point were just kind of, that was probably they were playing their worst football of the season, really. They got it right the following week when they won at Washington to save our season, and it really was the save our season game. But that feels like a long, long time ago, that Philly game, at home. There's a number of things going on if you just want to look off the field kind of stuff. And I don't know how much credence you put into this kind of bullshit, but the Giants haven't won in Philly, I think, since 2013. We have trouble beating this team anyway. The Philly, Eagles have been better than the Giants. The whole fucking league has been better than the Giants for the last 5-6 years. So they have. But one interesting thing, I think I saw the record. Oh, it's the Giants have never lost to a team. Now it's hard. You think about how many playoff appearances you have and all that kind of stuff. Giants have never lost to a team 3 times in the same season. The Eagles have never beaten a team 3 times in the same season. Does that matter anything in this game? Not really. I mean, it's just a stat that sits out there. And then I saw one that's interesting today where You always hear the one like, oh, it's really difficult to beat a team 3 times in the same season. That may be true to some degree, but those teams are actually 15-9
Yeah.
in that scenario. So the myth that
Yeah.
that it's the team loses more than they win, it's not true.
Yeah.
It's actually 9 times the team that got swept did turn the tables, but it's still like a 625 winning percentage that the team wins all 3 games. The chance that a team wins all 3. So yeah, I'm not ready to give my prediction yet, guys, but I think the good news is that if Hurts is not 100%, let's assume he's not. Even if he is, the Giants are playing with just a mojo right now that will keep them in this game. I think this is not going to be the type of game where I don't see Philly, just laying it on the Giants. The Giants right now have something going right now that I think they'll have to be game plan well enough on both sides of the ball. But this Eagle team, we know they're loaded. We you don't even have to look at the stats. I took the time to look at some stats and stuff, and it's almost we know what this team is. Both sides of the ball. They led the league in 70 sacks, almost broke the all-time record. We know Jones. This is not the Minnesota defense. This Eagle team is not the Minnesota defense. We are not just going to have our way going up and down the field against the Eagles. Absolutely not. And if we don't spy Hurts and we allow him to do what he's capable of doing, then they're going to put up a lot of points too. So I'm saying a bunch of vague shit here right now, without giving a prediction. I just feel like I'm just talking in a big, circle here. But I'll kind of hand the baton over to Mike here.
Yeah, let me continue your circle because
yeah, I'm just circling around right now.
You guys both said things that I wanted to touch on. And Scott, one of them was I thought the same thing. I had wrote it down before as something to talk about today about the 2008 game. This feels just like it. And you remember coming into that game, like Giant fans and the media, everyone sniffed that out too. There was everyone knew that loss was coming. I mean, you could feel
Wasn't that
it
something?
coming.
Isn't that amazing that we knew it?
And this kind of, maybe this isn't quite, that. But as you said, the Giants kind of mailed it in down the stretch, and they lost a couple, but they still hung on to the number 1 seed. And man, the parallels here are something. And the Eagles got hot at the end, and it's not like they ripped off a bunch of yards in a row, but they got healthy and they started playing really well. And they got confident, and so I think that was the biggest difference in that game coming in was the confidence level. The Eagles just carried a swagger into that game and just whooped our ass. Now, I don't think there's any way we whooped the Eagles' ass Saturday. There's no way. But I like the one thing I do know is if the Giants don't do everything within their power to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, we'll probably get beat, and it might be bad. It might be by 10 points or more. But if you can keep Hurts in the pocket, even at the expense of other things, he cannot hurt you that bad. Now, he might get hot, and they might still win the game, because presumably to do that, you're going to leave somebody open, or you're going to leave something else open to do it. But I will take my chances with that. Whatever that looks like, I will take my chances with it. And if Jalen Hurts just has a hot hand and comes out and beats us, that's fine. But I don't think you can feel good about going down to this team with Jalen Hurts just running all over the field on you. I don't. We saw in the Giants game, even against the Giants, basically second/third string defense, he was uncomfortable having to stay in the pocket. And there might still be some of that where they might not even want him to run, or he might not feel comfortable to run in this game. We don't know. He could also be 100%. But if he comes in there and he's a little dinged up and the Giants refuse to let him run, this game is going to the fourth quarter. Promise that it's going to the fourth quarter.
We've talked about this before, the dreaded clavicle. I've heard some rumors. He's got the dreaded clavicle. He had a broken collarbone. Now, is that true? I don't know. He played against the Giants, in week 18.
Yeah.
So if he had a broken collarbone, it's healed enough that he has 2 more weeks now to come back from that. So it will be interesting. He looked tentative week 18, but was that because he was playing backups and it didn't really matter, or was it because he really couldn't go? So I do think that's the key to this game. If we make Jalen Hurts throw from the pocket, we win this game.
Yeah.
If he's able to get out, because he could do exactly what Jones did against Minny. 3rd and 7, he just takes a snap and goes right and stiff arms one of our defenders, and then he's got 9 yards, 10 yards, 11 yards, whatever it is, and you're sitting there going, it's 3rd and 7, god damn it, you know.
Yep. That is absolutely the entire key to the game on either side of the ball. But it'll be a shame, and I really think the Giants have built something this year. And I'm not going to give the Giants eulogy before the season's over. Probably I'm going to pick them to lose, but I'll hold off on that for another week. But there's some things that I saw on the field throughout the year. This team has something special going, and I think Chris just identified the time. I don't know. It's like that butt whooping the Eagles laid on us earlier in the year galvanized the team somehow. Since then, I mean, they haven't been perfect since then. They've laid a couple of eggs, but since then, and some of those things showed up in the Viking game. And I'll tell you, there's 2 of them. We didn't talk about the block that Kenny Galladay laid out there for Barkley on that screen.
Angry run.
Yeah.
They got the
angry run award.
Good Morning Football. Him and Barkley combined.
Yeah. They called it a I saw one, journalist called it a pancake, and I'm like, I've never heard of a receiver pancaking a guy.
I wish I had the same fervor as Kyle Brandt did doing that. He would say, I love when he does the angry runs, actually.
So we've got this receiver who, by all, is a Pro Bowl receiver we brought here under the last regime. He can't get on the field. When he does, he doesn't even get targeted. And he's still playing so hard that he's making blocks like that on the field. I mean, I owe him an apology for if that's the way he's going to be. But the thing I loved about that block, other than the fact that I love the block, was Barkley running up to him after the play.
Yes.
And it's like, that's the way it's done. That's the way we do it. Like, that's a camaraderie. And I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was after the game or as the clock was writing down, Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. Did you see any of that on the mic'd up thing?
I saw when Thibodeau said, you're awesome, man. You're the best player I've seen.
He said, you're the best player I've ever played with. Yeah. And they hugged it out. This team has some mojo like that going on. Scott said the word mojo. Or no, Chris said the word mojo there. This team has some of that going on. It doesn't mean an automatic win against the Eagles or anything like that. Just, I'm looking forward to watching this team for the next few years. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. I did happen to notice that, not initially, but Barkley barking at Galladay.
Yeah.
Like saying who knows what, you know what I mean? Like, but just being jacked up, and Galladay kind of giving that head nod, acknowledging it. So, and Barkley, we know, has emerged, and he's been a leader now, for really the last couple seasons, and Jones as well. And those guys are like best friends, So they have, there were just some great comments about how, Barkley. I hate this fucking question, but because then the media then turns it into, they now have to talk it amongst themselves. But some journalists, after in the locker room, asking Barkley, like, what do you want him to say? He's like, do you think you have an elite quarterback? And Barkley's like, I know we have an elite quarterback, and he's proven that a number of times or whatever he says, and he's got our back. So then, of course, that now in the studio, I'm like, Barkley didn't come out and say that. He was asked the question, what do you want him to say? Right. No, I really don't think so. I think like that's almost like I'm almost like backing into a pet peeve here without even trying to. Like, what the fuck do you want the guy to say? You think you have an elite quarterback? No, not really. I think he's he's still not there. He's what the hell you want? Anyway, but that's not what I wanted to highlight. I mean, Barkley on specific plays on the bench, guys, barking to his teammates, getting everyone fired up. This is the most fired up we've seen this Giant team going back to the Coughlin era. Yeah. Think about it, guys.
Yep.
We've had one playoff appearance. That was in 2016 with McAdoosh and that team. That is so, like, no one even remembers that team because it was just, they didn't have anything. OBJ, bullshit. We had to always watch his antics and what he was doing. That team had nothing. They really didn't. This feels, and again, I'm not saying they're going to go on a run, and I'm not, comparing apples to apples with the, those teams that went on to, go all the way. But it could turn into that maybe down the road is what I think we're saying. And Dable, it starts with Dable.
Well, we talked about this prior to the game last week. When's the last time you've seen any team? I don't care if it's the Giants or anyone else, but especially the Giants with how injured we've been. No one on the injury report going into the game.
Yeah.
And now I think this week, Pinnock, who went to the hospital for an abdominal injury, and I think Ojulari's got a calf that keeps flaring up. I think those are the only two on the injury report this week. Other
Yeah.
than that, everyone's been a full participant.
That's unheard of for our team.
So
Yeah.
when you have a end of the season run where you're getting healthy and the team you're facing has some injuries, whether it's Lane Johnson, whether it could be Hurts banged up, that sometimes is a recipe for an upset. But
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those little things that fall in the Giants' favor for this game that might, if the Giants win, I might come back out here next week and go, how did we not see this coming? How did we not? But right now, I think Cardone would agree that it just picking them or thinking they're going to win in any way seems crazy.
we haven't made our predictions. Are you really putting words in our mouth yet?
No, Cardone and I talked about this last week.
Exactly.
All right. Talking about predictions, Mike, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So here's honestly the way I feel this game rolling out. For all the reasons we just talked about, I think the Giants get up on the Eagles early. And I do think the Eagles wake up, but I'm talking about like maybe a 17-3 or 24-7 type of lead for the Giants.
That big.
And the Eagles chip away, and it becomes a game in the fourth quarter. And if I had to, it's not quite a coin flip because I think the Eagles are a little bit better team. The Eagles probably just outlast us in the third quarter, but I'm going to say 33-30 Philadelphia.
Oh.
Going north of 30 again. I see it a little bit more tighter than that, Mike. I almost see a flip of the game we just won against Minnesota. I can see the Giants. Yeah, it's funny. I can see the Giants kind of getting that 7-0 lead, and we're just yucking it up and feeling like we're gonna, just win the game. Early on, like everything's like kind of falling our way early, and then it's like, oh shit, yeah, this is the number 1 seed Eagle team that is supposed to win this game, and I see us kind of going down by 10, like the Vikings, like we had the Vikings last, on Sunday, and then I see like us kind of coming back, maybe tying it. And I see you kind of going back and forth from that point the rest of the game. I don't have it quite as high scoring. I think, this is, again, this Eagle defense, they're going to get some sacks. They're going to harass Jones. I don't see it's impossible to see almost Hodgins and Bellinger and Richie James having the games, that they just did. So I have the score a little bit lower. I have I think the Giants are, not that this matters, but just for talking purposes, I think the Giants cover by half a point. I see the Eagles winning by 7. I see, because I think the spread's 7.5 right now. I see the Eagles 27-20. That's what I have it at.
That's a good call, Chris.
Oh no!
At least this time my score does not match exactly.
Okay,
All
right, you got away with it.
So he got away with it. But here's what I see. I first off, and I have to couch this, because if the Eagles score first quickly, I think this game gets away from us right away. So either we start out fast or it's sort of a neutral start. If the Eagles come out and they just blow our doors down on that first drive, I think we could be looking at a huge blowout, and I'm talking about like a 30-6 blowout or something like that.
Oof.
But how I see the game going, I really do think Jalen Hurts is injured more than we think he is. And I see this being a game that, in the fourth quarter, it's 20-17 Eagles, and the Giants have the ball, and they don't convert on that drive. Eagles come down, score a touchdown, and they win by 10, 27-17. So similar to what Chris had.
Yeah.
But I see us being in the game. We have a chance, and it's probably going to be as frustrating as hell for us watching it. To have it happen. It's going to
be frustrating. Win, lose, or draw, we're going to be frustrated.
Yeah. I'm almost, exactly. It's going to either way, but little different. I say this right now, and you guys know me a long time, so you can say, Cardone, shut the fuck up, because like I feel like this is a game where I think I want to just take it in. I'm already just in love with what our Giant team has done this year, and it's not one of those where I'm not going to say like, oh well, this is house money and all that bullshit. I think we talked about that even last week, because I knew we had a really good chance to beat the Vikings. I still think we have I know we have there's always a chance, right, to beat anybody's beatable. That's what's great about this NFL. Anybody's beatable. We know the Eagles are beatable. It's just this just seems like such a crazy mountain to climb, guys, with this team. And I just don't think for whatever. I've been predicting the Eagles make that are the NFC representatives in the Super Bowl all year, and I haven't changed my mind on that. I just haven't. For the Eagles to be one and done in this position as the 1 seed, and the Giants going in and being the team to knock them out. I know we've knocked out, like you said, Scott, we've knocked out a lot of 1 seeds in our playoff history. I do not see that happening. I just don't feel like the Giants are ready to take that major a step. I don't think they are.
I will say this. I think the signs are there that if it does happen, we can look back a week from now and go, well, the signs were there. Hurts has been injured. They stumbled a little bit down the stretch. They didn't come into the playoffs on a hot streak. There's a lot of signs that they're there. But that being said, I think the Giants are still a year away from really being in that group of teams. And the funny thing is, we are in that group of teams. We're in the final 8. So, we say that, but, guys, just to give our listeners a little glimpse into like the roller coaster of even how the 3 of us handle a game. I mean, we were talking about Mike and I having to talk Cardone off a ledge during the game, but I mean, you're watching the game. We were madmen. I mean, I'm looking back now, an out of body experience, listening to us yell and scream and pour our hearts into this game. Chris's son was there with us watching, and at the end of that game, it was just pure joy. And then you have the like, it's almost like Festivus. You have the airing of the grievances. Chris is there telling how much he loves all of us, and we're all sitting there. We're having a kumbaya. This is what football does. It brings all of us together. The fandom, and that bond that you have in that moment after a playoff win. I don't think I can explain. I cannot explain it to my wife. She doesn't understand. I can't explain it to most people who don't go through what we do.
It's true.
And guys, that you have to look at the end of that game as being one of the most euphoric things I have seen. It's just it's a playoff win, and I'm an adult with grown kids, and I'm acting like a friggin' toddler.
Playoff wins are something awesome, and the opposite of the win is like, same people, same friendship, same love for each other. But it's like, all right, I'm getting out of here. All right, I'll talk to you next week.
Well, we've experienced that as well, right? Yep. I mean, and that's the amazing thing about this particular sport. This everything about it, Scott. You guys just summed it up. I mean, but it's true, and I've tried to explain it as well. It's been, guys, 11 years since we went on that run to Super Bowl 46. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's our last playoff win. I mean, we've only been in the playoffs once. We keep highlighting it, but I think, to your point, Scott, that's the excitement level. It's just hard to think about anything else except this game coming up on Saturday night. It's just being in the mix. I just love the idea that you got to talk, like the media. You got to talk about the Giants. They're one of the 8 teams. It's just, I just love hearing about, even if they're predicting them to lose, which most everybody is, and that's You kind of feed off of that. You're like, all right, let's go. Let's prove them wrong. But I do want to make one point real quick, because somebody had mentioned about the 07 run. The first of 2 Mannings and Coughlin's that Super Bowl runs that we all remember so vividly. People forget the Giants made the playoffs in 05 and 06, 2 years before that run. Yeah. So you kind of have to go through those playoff appearances, losses, that kind of thing. They got their doors blown off by the 05 Panthers, which was a weird, season and game.
In a game we limped into. We had 3 linebackers that I can't even name who they were.
Yeah,
but
I think the point was that, it didn't matter. Like the Panthers, because they went on to the championship game that year or whatever. And then, they had the mojo at that time. But like what we're talking about, it, kind of who's hot, who's not at that time. And then 06, we had a much better showing against the Eagles. Ironically, we lost that game on a game-ending field goal by David Akers at the time. So you start like that year, they may not have had as good a regular season record. Not the point. But then the following year, that's when they went on the run. So you kind of have to, like the Giants, this has been a abysmal team the last 5 years. So for anyone to realistically really think they're going to make a run, it was great beating Minnesota, but now it's like, holy shit, like, are they really ready to make this run? It's just so difficult to see them doing that.
Yeah, it's there's several things about this year that have been really, really cool. And I don't mean to draw the ire. I know we have a lot of Jet fans listening, but there was something happening with the Jets earlier this year that irked me a little bit. And, that about mid-season, the Jets had a great record. They looked like they were headed to the playoffs along with the Giants at that time. And, you get remember we talked about it. They never talked about just the Giants alone or just the Jets alone. It's the Giants and the Jets. What are they doing? And so it was pretty much in universal agreement that Giants are kind of a fluke. The Jets are the team here that you need to be keeping your eye on. This is a team on the way up. The Giants are a blip. That was the sentiment. So, you guys know if I had to pick a second favorite team, the Jets might be on the list. But that irked me earlier in this year. Like, what's the impetus behind saying that? Why are you saying that? Because I don't see that. They have Zach Wilson. I don't see how that puts them, in any sort of thing. And so now, everyone got a kick out of the last 5 years. The Giants and the Jets record is equally abysmal. They're the worst, tied to be the worst team in the NFL over the last 5 years. Well, that shit's over. So shut up. I guess that's my thing there. And like I said, that's really not against the Jets. I hope our Jet friends and family listening realize that's about the media coverage of this situation.
Always about the media.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue. So usually we talk about the media in some sort in our pet peeves. So I'm going to lead with Mike again. Pet peeves.
I can go right. I can just continue that right in because my pet peeve is about the media this week, and it's one of our whipping boys that we've been on a little bit over the past few years. It's Mr. Colin Cowherd. So he had
the Dable thing.
No, I didn't even see the Dable thing. So maybe we can talk about that too. But no, he had. I saw a clip from his show this week where because he always does stuff like this. I'm going to rank the 8 quarterbacks who are left in the playoffs. He says so. So he ranks the 8 quarterbacks who are left in the playoffs. Of course, Daniel Jones is 8 on his list. Of course, I mean I didn't even have to the list hadn't even come up yet. I said Daniel Jones is going to be 8, so he was 8th. So he runs through the list and he's like, of course, number 1, the A standard is Mahomes, and then it's probably Burrows and Josh Allen and that next group, and he's going down the list. Now, when I couldn't really disagree with much on the list, although I don't know how Brock Purdy gets himself ahead of Dak Prescott or our guy Daniel Jones, but whatever. So, but it's what he says when Daniel Jones comes up. So I'm thinking, what is his rationale going to be to bury Jones on this list? What does he want to do? And you know what it is because he's a member of the lazy media. What does he mention? Turnovers. So that was his rationale for Jones being like, he's played a couple good games here. He's been good down the stretch, but the turnovers, guys, that keeps him at the bottom. So I went ahead and I looked at turnovers for all those 8 quarterbacks in the league. The only quarterback who has less turnovers than Daniel Jones is Purdy because he's only played 5 games. So Jones has 8 turnovers this year, 5 interceptions and 3 fumbles. That's 8 for Daniel Jones. Jalen Hurts in 2 less games also has 8. He has 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. Then, Purdy's kind of the outlier at 5 games, but he has 4 in 5 games, which extrapolates to about 19.
Well, you got to do the average per game then.
16 or something, right?
Do some math.
So anyway, as we know, Dak has 15 interceptions, somehow only 1 lost fumble. He has 16. Trevor Lawrence has 8 interceptions and 9 fumbles. Josh Allen is 14-5 for 19. Burrow is 12-3 for 15. Mahomes is 12-0. Mahomes doesn't lose fumbles apparently for 12. So the only players not on this list that even have everyone has at least double the amount of turnovers that Daniel Jones has on this list. But the reason for Jones being 8th on it is turnovers. You can't break the narrative when these guys, they're like a goddamn dog with a bone. They just won't let it go.
You got to take Cowherd with a grain of salt. This jackass last week came up with like a Dan Dierdorf Captain Obvious observation.
Yeah, I saw that.
Brian Dable is not going to get fired after this season.
Yeah.
No fucking shit, jackass. Really?
Yeah.
That he literally was a segment on his show. Is Brian Dable safe? Yes. Yes, he's safe.
I give Coward a lot of credit too, because normally, I think I've always happened to like the guy, thinking that he's one of the more intelligent of these yahoos, that have a microphone on and a camera in his face. But I did not hear that, Mike. I heard Scott. I heard the Daboll comment about not being fired, which is just like, yeah, you just like, what are you talking about, asshole? Of course.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear this quarterback ranking thing and having that's fine. You could put Jones at 8th. That's not even. But give me a different reason. Give me a more valid reason.
Right.
If you want to have him at 8th, all right. I'm not expecting him to be 3rd.
Right.
But
right.
For God's sakes, at least put him maybe even ahead of Purdy, only because of just experience, even.
Yeah. Just right.
Something.
I mean, and that's exactly what I said. You
put him ahead of Lawrence, list. To be honest with you.
Yeah, you look at this list.
After last week, Lawrence.
There's a lot of good quarterbacks on this list. I really understand how someone who's not been exclusively watching Daniel Jones for the last 2 months would put Daniel Jones last on this list. But just to be lazy and say turnovers,
right,
when the opposite is clearly true. I mean, if your number one quarterback Mahomes has 4 more turnovers than Daniel Jones.
Jones just needed to go to a Minneapolis
your number 3 guy,
area,
the
Waffle
guy
House after the game.
The guy he elevates to number 4 on his list is Trevor Lawrence with 17 turnovers.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence,
and that's before the playoff game. That's 17.
4 and 1/2 in a playoff game. Yeah.
So that's the guy he puts at 4th, but Daniel Jones is buried for turnovers.
I could almost have a pet peeve on Trevor Lawrence's reactions to those interceptions that he threw in the first half.
Yeah.
Of course, they ended up coming back to win the game, but, guys, Trevor Lawrence acted like those things didn't matter. It was a playoff game. All right. So it was bad pass. All right.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the other games.
No, that game was – when you win your first playoff game in over a decade, not much more gets on the
No, there's not. No, that's right.
So
didn't want to give myself a reason to be angry this week. I really didn't.
So I know Cardone always has good pet peeves. So I'll go second this time, which I normally don't do. But guys, we talked about this several times during the game. But like spotting the ball. Why is spotting the ball such a difficult task these days? And it's not so much the spotting of the ball, but think about how many times when they know where the first down is and they spot the ball based on where the first down is. So when you start at the 25 and the first down is just breaking the plane of the 35-yard line, the ref always comes in there on a close play, and he puts that ball just so it breaks the line of the 35, and he's calling for the chains to come over,
waving a guy up.
he's
move it,
up.
Yeah. Move your.
I mean, how many times did we see this weekend the quick review process where they change spots of the calls, because the spots of the calls have been horrible. And, and I hate to go back to something Mike has said before about John Madden, where he's like, when I played the game where you landed with the ball is where the ball was.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's almost like they give you like 2 yards back from where you land, thinking that because your foot's over there, that's where your foot touched.
Scott, the way they spot the ball these days, I'm sorry, Chris, for interrupting, but it dawns on me that you don't even really need yard markers. You need to know is what down it is and whether or not you have more than 5 to go. That's really all you need to know, right?
So true.
Is it second and over 5? That's all I need to know. Second and under 5, second and over 5. Because if I get close to the marker, you're giving me the first down anyway. 3rd and 1 doesn't matter. It's 3rd and less than 5.
I don't know, guys. But you see it go both ways. You see sometimes a ridiculous spotting on the ball where it's like it's more ahead of where the guy got. You know what I mean? It all depends on the down. Like you said, like we're all agreeing. It always depends on the down distance and just sort of like just the evolution of the play, with which we always talk about, where you don't, this obsession with like, was his knee down? You don't, obviously you see that on the goal line, that's the other thing. Like the goal line plane, this shit doesn't exist anywhere else on the field. You know what I mean? Like it's just like this fictitious thing where how many times you see a guy's knee go down, but then like they spot the ball somewhere, just so it's enough for a first down kind of bullshit. Now this another one with the spotting of the ball. How many times do you see a quarterback start to run backwards, trying to like scramble or get out of a sack, and then everything it jailbreaks on top of him. He gets thrown back another 5 yards. They never know where to fucking spot that one.
Oh
It's
God,
sort of
no, that's
they always give him like, oh, that ball should be on the 32, and then they come back from like the camera angle, and you see it's like on the 34. It's like, oh God damn it, no way! You just gave him 2 yards.
They have no idea what they're doing on that one.
I don't remember this
how
20,
many times
30
this
years
past
ago.
week did we see a shin touchdown?
The shin. There's a lot of
the
shins.
Shin.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about shins this week.
There was a lot of shin talk. Way too much shin talk.
Shin talk.
And that really that goes back to what Madden's comment was about when I played the game where you landed up with the ball is where the ball was, because then you start talking about shins, you start talking about elbows, you start talking about all these things and micromanage where the spot is. But for some reason, these guys nowadays, it seems like they spot the ball almost where the guy, it's like 2 yards back from where he ends up every time.
Well, as they're running out there, they already know in their mind first down or not first down, right? So they've already decided that. So they grab the ball and they move it so it's an obvious first down if it's a first down, or so it's obviously not if it wasn't. Just put the ball where it is and measure it.
Like Chris said, though, if we aren't going to see a measurement in that Buffalo Bills game at the end of the game where we missed that final play or that first play of the Giants game, when are we ever going to see a measurement?
We're not.
I want to see the guy get out there with a credit card again and see if he can get it.
I do not. No one can make me understand why we will not. The NFL just refuses to bring the chain gang onto the field. I won't get it. I don't understand. And it's all, and coaches, announcers, we've all just accepted it. Well, I haven't. The three of us haven't. Yeah. But the whole rest of the football watching fucking world has just accepted the fact that no chains are coming out on the field. When was the last time? I don't remember how and when and why this started, but I'm sure when it did, were announcers like who weren't maybe included in on those referee meetings. Somebody had to be calling a game, being like, "Well, geez, you got to bring out the chain gang for this and measure this. This is too close to call." I don't remember. It's like it just happened overnight. We're like, and it's a first down.
Yeah.
Why? When?
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point because remember back in the day, like a coach could call for a measurement, but the official could also tell him to eat pound sand if it was not close enough. The coach would be like, "Come on!" The ref would be like, "No, we're not measuring that." So coaches don't even ask for them now. So did a rule change that nobody knows about? That coach, you can't even ask for one now, or every time that they ask, the official's like, "Get out of here! We
fuck off." All right, pet peeves, Cardone.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with I'm going with, this is an officiating one. And this one, it's very particular. And I'm going to describe the play in which this one, we've seen it before. And I just can't stand when this one occurs. I don't even care who the teams are. It wasn't the Giant game. So we were just talking about the Bills-Dolphins game. So if you guys remember, I think it was earlier in the game. It was Josh Allen's first interception that he threw, because I think he had a couple in that game. And I want to say it was an earlier one in the game. It was deep down the field. Bills were going from right to left on your TV screen, and he throws a long interception where the Miami guy, now I forget who it was on Miami, starts to return. He's running up the sidelines, and the play is he's returning an interception, which is what they're supposed to do in the NFL. So after the play, you see the melee of there's just a pile up of linemen and other people just hammering away at each other, and you're like, what the hell happened here? So then you have the isolation camera to show how this melee started. So after Josh Allen throws the interception, he does what all quarterbacks do, and I hate this freaking move, where he just gives up on the play. He's kind of got his hands up and he kind of just gives up on the play. So what happens at that point? Well, guess what? He's now a fucking defender, and one of the defensive linemen on the Dolphins is simply blocking a blue jersey to try to clear a path for his teammate who just intercepted the ball, who's coming up the sidelines. So Allen kind of slips and falls a little bit. He got shoved a little bit, but Allen, who gave up on the play, is now getting blocked by a defensive lineman. Nothing illegal. He wasn't violent. He wasn't doing anything. Allen is no longer a quarterback on that particular play. He's now a guy who can make a tackle on an intercepting player. So after the guy gets tackled on the far sidelines, what happens? I think it was the center from the Bills fucking just ambushes and comes in with like just a haymaker on the Dolphin guy.
It comes out with his helmet.
It's bullshit. Like, what for? And my pet peeve, I haven't even gotten to it yet. But after that, I'm thinking, well, I didn't see anyone, throw a punch or do anything from the Miami side. This shouldn't be offsetting penalties. This should just be a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct or unnecessary roughness on the Bill guy who was going nuts on the Dolphin. Nope. Unsportsmanlike conduct on offense, unsportsmanlike conduct on a defense. Why? That's my pet peeve is stop with the simultaneous offsetting penalties. Call it just on the guy who ambushed the guy. The Dolphin was doing nothing but just blocking Josh Allen. And Allen, like a pussy, just like runs and jogs off the field, doesn't, he lets his teammates. And that's what I know you're supposed to stick up for your quarterback. I'm not suggesting you don't stand up for your quarterback and defend your guy, but you don't have to ambush the guy over the top of his head. The guy didn't even have a chance to retaliate. And the refs, the pet peeves, the refs just insinuating the offsetting penalties. It's bullshit. Just call it by what you saw. And it should have been a 15-yard penalty on just Buffalo there. Pissed me off.
I love when the Buffalo guy comes out of there with the Dolphin helmet, celebrating like he's on Survivor, winning an immunity challenge or something.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get any more penalty than anyone else. It's like you just rip the guy's helmet off. You have it in your hand. You're celebrating with this helmet in your hand and nothing else.
But that not the ultimate taunt?
How can it not be? But guys, how many times, right? How many times? And it just made me think, as I was watching, I'm like, don't call the offsetting, don't do it. And I didn't really care that much one way or the other. But we've seen that. I've seen that way too many times where like one guy is really the one being the creating the personal foul, and the refs just bail him out by going unsportsmanlike offense, unsportsmanlike defense, offsetting penalties. Bullshit.
So it's particularly when they call that after the play, it's particularly frustrating because that's just nothing happens. Like, why did you even bother? If you were going to call offsettings, don't throw any. But I hate offsetting penalties during live action though, because that just benefits the offense, right? Most of the time, you just get another play. Yeah. Replay, second down.
Replay the down.
So we do have a couple questions this week. First one's from our resident Cowboy fan, Brian Peacock. And we've done the start, bench, and cut
good. We got to do
of different positions, but this one is for kickers.
Oh.
He wants to start, bench, and cut Matt Barr, Raul Allegre, and Pat Summerall. So I'm going to lead this one off. You guys haven't had time to digest this.
I guess this is like there are kickers on Dallas fans' minds this week. Is that where this is coming from?
Brett Maher missed four fucking extra points. So. And I love that there's video of Dak Prescott going, go for fucking two after one of the kicks.
Third one.
But I'll take this one first. For me, you don't have a start, bench, and cut when it comes to kickers. You have a start, and that's it. You cut the other two because you don't waste a roster spot on another kicker. So for me, you start Summerall because I want to see a guy line up straight ahead, kicking the ball. In the old days, drunk off his ass.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
He didn't add Gano on this list, which would probably be my start.
Yeah.
So if I'm going with the three, I want Summerall. I want him to kick straight on. I want him to go back to the sideline, have a shot of whiskey, and put the jacket on.
Yeah. That's been keep his helmet on so he can secretly smoke.
Right.
All right, Mike.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago when he hit the 2 50-yarders in the games. Gano is our best kicker ever, right? I mean, are we there with that yet? I mean, I don't know, but
yeah, he's gotta be.
Out of those three, I always felt like I liked having Barr, but he was accurate, but he had no leg. He had no. I mean, back then, accurate just meant you were like 70%, right? But he couldn't hit anything like over 40, if I recall. He didn't have much of a leg. Allegre always felt to me like at the time like he was a pro kicker. Like you could depend on Allegre. Like when he was trotting out there. That was that right after Ali Haji Sheik?
Yeah,
I don't
it was.
remember.
It was like,
We had the
Yeah,
Schubert
it
guy
was,
who
I
was
think.
who was a math teacher or something
Yeah.
the week before. We've had some interesting kickers over the years. But so I would go, if I'm going to be honest and answer his question here, I would say I'm going to start Allegre at a little bit longer leg. I cannot even say the words cut Pat Summerall out loud, so he's got to be my bench, and then I will cut Matt Barr.
what's funny? There was a game I distinctly remember. It might have been against the Browns or some shitty team like that. The Giants lined up for a 44-yard field goal to win the game with Barr, and he kicks it. In the video you get on the TV, you're like, it's good, and it ended up like 3 yards short. You're like, it's 44 fucking yards, but back then that was normal.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why people say in 25 that Norwood choked. No, he didn't. People don't realize how big a field goal that was.
He was 1 on 7 over 40 on grass for that season.
Yeah, people today looking back at the highlights and how long that kick was and saying, "Oh my God, what a choke job." That was not a regular kick kickers made back then.
Not back then.
I mean, even the announcers. Remember the announcers like, "That is a long way to kick a football."
It is.
Before
long,
he kicked it.
47 yards.
What they said.
But it seemed long.
Yeah.
At the time, it did seem long. That's only 1990. God, it doesn't. It's not like I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it is a generation ago, but
this has gotten so much better.
This is a weird one. I'm going to answer it. Maybe I think I'm just going to answer it differently, just from you guys, just for the sake of entertainment value. I think. So I'm going to answer this just if just for one game, like instead of like a whole season
game. I know.
I'm going to answer this just like as if it's like hey,
game.
Cash Barr. So I'm starting Barr just for that fact alone. The guy in our lifetime. I mean, we've had other game-winning kicks. I mean, Lawrence Tynes, certainly, at frigid, Lambeau. But for some reason, the Barr field goal against San Francisco, that is the most iconic field goal in Giants history, maybe in our lifetime, in our playoff history. There's no doubt. Just what was at stake and everything. So if I'm starting, one guy for one game, I'm starting Barr for that reason alone. I think just that unbelievable clutch kick earned him a right on my roster, I think.
Did you watch the kick?
It's funny, that one I did. So back then, here's a little thing. So I watched that game with just me and my brother Greg at the time. And there's a little story behind that, in terms of how we ended up watching the game. It's a quick 30-second story. He was at the time, this was 1990, right? So at the time, he was going to go, we were both attending Ramapo College at the time or whatever, and he was going to drive up early in the day, because I think the Giants were the late game on that Sunday, championship Sunday. So he was headed up to to go watch the game up there with some buddies or whatever it was. And he was borrowing my dad's car or something like that. And he fucking hit a curb. He blew out my dad's axle or tires, whatever the case was. He blew out the car. I don't remember what we did with the car that day, but he ended up coming back to the house. My dad was watching the game maybe at one of, he wasn't home. So just me and Greg watched the game that day, obviously having, just heart attacks the entire afternoon. He couldn't watch the Barr kick. I actually was watching it. This is now. And so I don't know why all these years later, I can't watch field goals now, but I was watching that one and just thinking the whole time, thinking it was going to hook left. And I'm like, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Like one of those where, yeah. And then, of course, eruption after that. But so Barr gets my start. Like you said, Mike, just before, I was thinking Allegre, Summerall. I mean, I got to go with Summerall I got to have Summerall on the team. I got to just have him either just drinking on the sidelines or in the locker room. I need Pat Summerall on the roster. Yeah. Just for his banter and just his everything and Allegre was just kind of a vanilla guy. You know what I mean? I can't really remember, other than like a Monday night game against the Redskins in Washington to open the season in '89. It's funny. I don't remember Allegre having a ton of game-winning kicks, really, or having really
I think
meaningful.
Of Deloiso more.
Yeah, I can't recall. I mean, Lawrence Tynes had a couple, right? I mean,
Lawrence
I
Tynes
can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't recall Allegre having really game-saving, season-ending kind of kicks that where any one stands out. So unfortunately, I got to cut Raul Allegre, who again, he was part of that '86 team and all that. I love the guy, but he was kind of a little vanilla in my mind. So starting Barr, benching Summerall, and cutting Allegre.
In the age of social media, Lawrence Tynes has gotten my love more than any other NFL kicker. So just this week, Dallas Cowboy fans are freaking out because of what Amaro did. He missed the 4 extra points. And someone tweeted Lawrence Tynes and said, "Hey, Cowboys might be looking for kickers." And he's like, "You couldn't pay me $10 million a game to wear that fucking helmet."
Yeah.
The guy is still, and he was giant. He was a Chief before he's a Giant.
Yeah.
He still bleeds blue.
Yeah. And he's
That's
Scottish,
awesome.
right?
He's Scottish.
Yes, he is.
He's Scottish.
So
is Gano, by the way.
Is Gano Scottish? What is it with
Gano
us?
is Scottish.
And our punters
And
Scottish?
our punter's Scottish?
Yes,
What the hell?
If you're not Scottish,
I did not know
crap.
Gano was Scottish. It's crazy.
God. Yeah, I'm looking back at Chris, your great comments about Allegre and Bard. I think Allegre he was just on all that great 80s run.
Yeah.
He was just a staple. And maybe that's why, I thought that of him just as he was just always the guy that was there, he got hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
He definitely missed games certain seasons, but he was just kind of like, he was on the dominant '86 team, of course, where he didn't really I don't remember him having a game-winning kick that season.
No, I don't.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I back up. He had I take it back. The 4th and 17 game.
Yes.
That's famous. The best game that season as far in terms of he kicked the game-winning kick, but it was only like a 30-something yarder, but still, nonetheless, we were trailing by a point, and we won the game 22-20 on his leg. But it was after the 4th and 17, so he did kick that one.
I am generally going to go with a throwback guy. So, like, if somehow Artie Donovan gets inserted into one of these questions, regardless of the position, I'm putting Artie Donovan as a starter. I don't care if it's starting quarterback, starting running back.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's going to have a hot dog at halftime, have a couple of smokes, probably throw up on the field. I don't give a shit.
So yeah, thanks again, Brian, for that good question. I tell you what's funny. Speaking of Brian and that particular period of time, those '90s. So when the 1990 season started, Brian and I made a bet who would have more wins, the Giants or the Cowboys. Well, the Giants started 10-0, and the Cowboys started 0-10. So Brian paid before the season was over, which I always appreciated that.
Novak and I had a bet this year about the Giants having more wins than the Jets, so I did win that one.
Well,
all right.
We do have another one, another question. This comes from KC. If you remember, he was a guest on our preseason show.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but he was asking if we think Jones has done less with more than the other top tier quarterbacks have done, or the top tier quarterbacks.
More with less.
More with less. And I would say, unequivocally, that's a yes. I mean, if you look at what Josh Allen has, what Mahomes has, I mean, arguably, you could make a case, and they have evolved over the year, but you have to ask yourself, is it Jones elevating these guys, or are these guys just elevating their game? You could make a case the Giants have the worst receiving core in the NFL. I mean, Hodgins mid-season was on the Bills practice squad. Slayton was going to be, people wanted him cut in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
You started with Richie James, questions about his hands. David Sills was day one starting receiver on this team.
Yikes.
We cut Alex Bachman, and people were pissed off about that.
Yeah.
And you think about some of the contributors we had. Lawrence Cager, tight end. We poached from the Jets early in the season. Novak talked about him, saying that he thought that was a big loss for the Jets, and he looked pretty good. So I really think Jones has not only done more with less on the elite quarterbacks, but really almost anyone in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of started the show off today with that, saying, what we've done with this year, like, I just you can't help but be excited to think, holy crap, what if we get some talent out there with him? Oh my goodness, And it's, of course, he's got Barkley, and a lot of these other quarterbacks don't have a Barkley, but a lot of them do have a good running game. And Scott, you just laid it out there with the wide receivers. I mean, this group, I'm sure there's another team that struggles at wide receiver, but I don't think that the depth from top to bottom, I don't think it, I mean, who is our number one? It's Slayton now, right? I
Or
mean,
Hodgins.
or is it Hodgins or Richie James? We're talking about these three guys potentially being our number one.
Number one.
Not even 2 years ago, as Scott mentioned, Slayton was a deep 4 on this team and ready to be cut. Yeah, I don't think there's any question, and that's part of the big excitement, and what, as Scott mentioned, we all feel like we're a year early on this playoff run, and you can't help but just be super excited. You just can't.
Well, I'll answer it this way, like with a resounding yes. He's done the most with less than maybe than any other quarterback in the league. And again, I think we highlighted this a couple weeks ago. Darius Slayton is the Giants' leading receiver for the season in terms of yards, and he's ranked 47th in the league. So let's do the math. There's 32 teams, so that means that 14 teams have at least 2 receivers that have outproduced our number one receiver in Darius Slayton. And then I think the next, is Richie James at like 59th. Now, you could argue like, well, it's the quarterback who's got to get him the ball. There's no. This is, and he played, it's hard to measure metrics, how bad the offensive line was. You can measure in terms of how often he was sacked, I think the 4th most in the league. For among all starting quarterbacks, and then pressured on, I forget how many other statistics. So yeah, I think the answer is Daniel Jones. Again, are we being homers here? No, I don't think so. I don't, when it comes to what Jones has overcome with as little has been around him. Again, it's one of those things where I would love to see some kind of computer analysis where, put Mahomes, put any one of these, elite quarterbacks behind that giant offensive line and with those receivers, and computers simulate an entire 17-game schedule and somehow have a computer spit out what the numbers would be. Yeah. Would love to see what those results would look like.
There's a couple of points here, Chris. That was awesome. The first one is with like your simulation, and I want people to think about this, because offhand I think people would scoff. But does anyone really think if you replace Josh Allen with Daniel Jones, there's a huge drop off in Buffalo? A huge drop off. Now there might be a drop off. Josh Allen might be a better passer right now. Mm-hmm. So there's a drop off. But I'm saying, are the Bills suddenly not a playoff team? Can they not win 10, 11, 12 games with Daniel Jones? Is it like 5? Does he account for 5, 6 wins? What's that wins against replacement bullshit stat like in baseball or something, right?
The war.
The war stat. That's a great question, Mike. Like, exactly. Yeah. Put Jones in that offense with the same exact thing, and is Buffalo just simply now all of a sudden they're a 500 team? Yeah. I don't think so. I really don't. And, you mentioned just now the sacks, the pressures. The amount of times teams come after him and are crowding the line of scrimmage because everyone knows you can't let Barkley get off. So Jones is always playing this game at an elevated pace, and he has 8 turnovers. So the guy took his biggest weakness and made it a strength to the point where out of the 8 quarterbacks still playing in this league, he has turned the ball over less than half the amount of times of 6 of them.
And he came off a game, guys. We talk about him being near flawless, not flawless, but he came off a game where I can't think of any throws where I was like, that should have been picked. And a lot of times you go back to a game, every quarterback has them. Josh Allen had a few picks against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and a lost fumble on a sack, which, again, you can knock the guy for not taking care of the ball even on that particular play because the sack was like kind of imminent. But another way to answer that question, Mike, is Daniel Jones with what he had, and went 9-7-1. So if you literally pluck out, and I'm literally like, if you pluck out, Josh Allen and insert Daniel Jones, then what is Jones? What's his record going to be? It's going to be worse than 9-7-1. What he did with the Giants, with the Bills' talent around him, and we're just using the Bills. We could put him on the Chiefs' offense or what, give him Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill or any one of these other stars. Give him Justin Jefferson.
Well,
actually, I heard a great stat give him the fucking Vikings, core of receivers.
But even if you don't go that direction and you go the opposite direction, put Josh Allen on the Giants, put Kirk Cousins on the Giants.
Yep.
Are we demonstrably better than 9-8-1 or whatever we were? 9-7-1.
9-7-1. 10-7-1 now.
The top tier quarterbacks, Mahomes might be good for 2 more wins than a Daniel Jones. That's the best I can come up with for that.
Yeah.
But what games is he winning that we lost? That's the only thing. It's like,
I don't know.
Maybe the Detroit game. I don't know.
Maybe the Minnesota regular season game.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I'm just, I think everything is there. The average fan that you run into in the street and it's like, oh, are you confident with Daniel Jones? Or, as we've talked about the lazy media guys, I think if you threw out to them that, do you know that Daniel Jones turned the ball over 8 times this year? I think most of them would be shocked.
Like Colin
to hear that
Cowherd.
statement. Yeah. I think they would be like, wow, really? Well, that's still, what's that, about average? No, actually, the guy you guys love so much, Josh Allen, turned it over 19. Again, not including his playoff game where he just turned over 3 times. So.
Yeah. Was it 3 or 4?
I thought it was 4 at one point, but I think it was 2 interceptions and a fumble.
Okay. Two picks and a fumble lost. Yeah.
Fumble return for a touchdown, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So we are the 3 Angry Giant fans. We are at angry_3 on Twitter. Send in your questions. We love answering questions. That's one of my favorite segments. So you guys got anything else this week?
No, man, just jacked up for the game. Let's go. Just balls out. Just play balls out. Got nothing to lose, man.
We will be back next week, win or lose. Again, we will be with you throughout the end of the Super Bowl, and then from then we'll take a hiatus probably until the draft comes around, and we always do a draft preview, then we'll do a training camp preview, and then we'll start up when training camp comes around again. But win or lose, guys, we're gonna follow this all the way through. Love the build up to the Super Bowl, even if we're not asking the stupid questions people are in that week prior. But I would love to continue this run. We all 3 of us have predicted that won't happen, but we'll see what happens.
Stranger things have happened. Is it? So we have to come back and talk about it if the Giants lose next week.
We're coming back and talk about it.
God.
Like you said, we are professionals. We've agreed to this. We are not David Carr or Marcus Mariota.
You're right.
We'll be,
we're not.
We'll be back.
We'll come to work.
All right. Have a
good night, everyone. Hey.